Okay, good late afternoon, everyone. Late afternoon, indeed it is. It looks almost like evening, but it's not yet evening. Of course, we are migrating into the fall hours, in fact, winter hours to come soon. So it's a pleasure to see all of you here, and thank you so much for coming. We hope what we'll have a great intellectual feast with this panel discussing business and business-related career. And we have a tremendous panel, which we'll introduce to you in a minute. But I am here to introduce the moderator, my great colleague for many years, Greg Maas. And I'm sure most of you students already know him because he is the director of career planning and development at NJIT, a position he has occupied for many, many years. He has, under his leadership, really made that place grow tremendously. I mean, obviously, you're here eventually to get a job as you leave NJIT, and Greg is a person who will make that part feasible for you. He is someone who is very knowledgeable in career-related issue. We have for years counted on him to bring him to talk to our students about career development, career path, career issues, and even career data, which he knows. You can wake him up anytime from his sleep, and he will give you the latest, which is going on. So because the time being so short, I'm not going to take a long time to introduce the speaker. If you have been at NJIT, I'm sure you must know Greg. If you have not yet met Greg, maybe you have not yet started to focus about your exit. So with that, I will invite Greg to come in and to start to introduce the panel, and so we can begin. We only have about 50 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those very kind words, Chaitanya. Much appreciated. And I know we don't have a lot of time, and I'm going to try and get through some information very quickly. The slides will be available, and the information will be available to you all on the website, on the Career Services website, which is a small trick of getting you to visit our website as often as possible. All right, so the program for this afternoon is as follows. All right, so I'm going to kick it off by giving you maybe 10 or 12 or 13 minutes worth of information pertaining to job markets, unemployment rates, market trends, where things are going, but focus it very much so on your major, your concentrations, and hopefully the career objectives that you have in mind for when you walk across that stage at some point and get that nice diploma and use that as a credential to begin your world of work. All right, I also want to share with you trends regarding salaries and geographic locations, and then focus just a small bit of information on things like skills and competencies and timing that will either make or break your success in terms of landing the job that you want. I have the great assist today by four of our very esteemed alums, all graduates of our executive MBA program at various intervals, who come back today to share their knowledge, their insights, their experiences with you through a set of questions that we prepared that I think that you will relate to very nicely and will learn a bit from as well. And so without further ado, let's begin our program. All right, so first of all, we're going to take a look at the outlook or the employment outlook or the labor market outlook, a little bit about New Jersey, because I would assume that many of you are from here. And even if not you're from here originally, many of you intend to stay here if possible. So New Jersey, New York, and a bit about national. Some information regarding the recent college graduate job market, so what it looks like today compared to perhaps a few years ago, and where it's headed in the future, and then specifically focus in on business/management majors. I know there are at least a half a dozen different concentrations within that, but for the purpose of this presentation and the limited time that we have, we're going to combine them all into just general business management category for today. All right, so first of all, the good news is that the job market, by a number of factors, any way you slice it and dice it, in the state of New Jersey is looking very nice. Compared certainly to the post-recession era of 2009 to about 2013, where the unemployment rate, and you may be too young to remember this, was double digits. And it was a very hard time for college graduates who were carrying a lot of debt and having a very difficult time procuring employment upon graduation. It's down to 5.2, and so it's really improved, but by almost 100% in terms of where it needs to be. Incidentally, an ideal in a perfect world, a benchmark for unemployment rate is about 4%. All right, and so that's so we're not very much off that mark. When we look at in terms of participation rate, and that's the number of people that from a particular region or state that are working, who want to work, that are working, 63.8%. Not a good grade in the class. And in fact, if you get that in a lot of classes, you failed the class. All right, but in terms of participation, it means that for the entire population, that's the percentage of the population that's currently employed. And the other important characteristic, and that's the important thing is that we're a full percentage point ahead of the nation, which I think currently for the month of November was about 62%. And then last, the private sector, and most of, and not all, but many of you have aspirations for entering careers in private sector businesses or organizations. That could mean financial services, it could mean healthcare, it could mean entertainment industry, it could mean manufacturing, it could mean any number of things. And so that the private sector job growth at 2.5% was faster than the nation's. And that information comes out of typically the Heldrick Center for Labor Market and Workforce Development at Rutgers University. And if you see the name James Hughes, he's really the state's economist. If you read anything in the paper or hear any information on the radio, typically he's the one that's quoted. All right, as a whole, for those of you who have aspirations for leaving the Garden State and moving to other places across the country, these are the industry clusters that have been identified by various sources. And when I say various, it's typically a blend of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It could be Manpower, it could be ADECO, folks that contribute, folks that are in the employment business contribute to this information. They're telling us that your best bet in terms of plentiful employment opportunity is coming from the professional and business service industries. Financial services, insurance, it could be employment services, and any business-to-business activity tends to be a strong cluster for business and management graduates. Healthcare, certainly, we are an aging nation as folks are living longer, and the population of baby boomers, which was the largest per year population of folks in the country, continues to grow. There's going to be tremendous need for healthcare. You're seeing right now there may be some dips in things like hospital and hospital administration because the market is correcting itself. You see a lot of mergers of hospital systems that are going on now. And so that typically causes some layoffs, but that will eventually adjust itself into a very healthy market. Then leisure and hospitality, certainly those that are reaching their retirement age are looking to travel and to spend money on things like hotels and entertainment. Certainly an interesting and plentiful opportunity for jobs. Okay, business managers are typically interested more so than social work managers perhaps in salaries. Right, and so if you take a look at the next grid, this is information that comes from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, or NACE. They're the largest professional association of recent college graduates entering the workforce, people who work in that field, either on the college side or on the corporate side in the college relations departments. And this comes as no surprise. You'll see that we've been in a high demand for IT employment for quite a while, and so the largest salaries coming out tend to be folks interested in computer information systems, engineering, math and statistics. But fourth, along a list of what could be potentially 100 different disciplines is business. And oh, by the way, in addition to ranking very high in terms of salary, there are also the tremendous number of opportunities exist within business than any of those other, probably than all of the other majors or broad categories combined on this particular grid. You'll see on the sheet, I passed out a sheet, and I apologize because in my haste to get this ready for this afternoon, at the very bottom right corner, we have inverted or flip-flopped the BS and MS numbers. And so if you take a pen or pencil and simply do a switch, put the BS in the second column, MS in the third, but you'll see that our BS graduates, and these are all about NJIT graduates, in the graduating class of 16, The average salary for them was slightly over $53,000, and you'll see that corresponds almost exactly with the salary information from the NACE. And the NACE is about 800 or 900 schools reporting their salary figures for all the schools in the country. And so NJIT is comparatively as good as the majority or the norm for all business schools in the United States. All right, in terms of where the jobs are, this is a graph that comes to us where it shows that the very dark blue area, which represents New York, New Jersey, DC, Delaware, Connecticut, or the Northeast region for the most part, that if you are going to work and you're going to work in a business career and you're interested in earning the highest salary, you probably want to stay right here. Right? There's no reason to leave unless you want to go to Texas and put a cowboy hat on or something, or go to California and open a vineyard. Right? You could do that. Or a medical marijuana facility. I heard that's pretty profitable these days, right? All right, but no reason to leave this area, right? Of course, there's a higher cost of living that exists in the Northeast, but we'll earn the big bucks first and then worry about that later on. All right, business degrees dominate demand for undergraduates, and this shows you once again from NACE. NACE does a survey of employers every year. They asked them, where are you hiring? Are you planning on hiring more this year than you did the year before? And which disciplines are you hiring the most in? And you'll see that they broke it down from a broad category now to a specific major discipline. Look at all the business-related majors that top this list of where employers tend to do their hiring. Finance, accounting, general business administration, MIS, information systems to a certain extent. Supply chain is a field that many of our business graduates, we don't have a major in supply chain, but many of our graduates wind up going into supply chain positions upon graduation. So six of the top 10 are really responding to the need for majors or students and graduates with your major credential. All right, if we move to the graduate level, how many graduate students in the room, MBA students or MS students? Anyone here from? Well, if you're thinking about going on to graduate school at some point, MBAs, finance, accounting, very much atop the list. The same way that we are recognizing the need for business professionals, we're seeing that at the graduate level as well. All right, business careers, exciting work, and jobs plentiful. This was really meant to pertain to the sell sheet that I passed out. And for the new people coming in the room, don't get excited about the high salary just yet for a business graduate. There was a mistake on the sheet, so please correct it and just reverse the MS and BS salaries on the very bottom, but still very, very strong. To graduate in 4 years with a business degree and earn mid-50s is a great start. So, opportunities, strong. This is a sheet that we produce every year within the Career Center, and so we're listing the types of industries where our graduates wind up working, the types of job titles that they have, the employers that hire the most of our business students or management students, the types of, on the other one on the right-hand side bottom pertains to our experiential education programs, cooperative education, internships, job postings and such. That's the actual raw number of postings that we list through the NJIT Career Development Services CDS link site for a calendar year. All right, I want to just move in now to a bit of information pertaining to, in addition to a degree, in addition to a good grade point average from a fine institution, what are some of the things you need to be thinking about as you're approaching graduation and look to really increase your chances, competency, skills, related work experience, timing, and we're going to fold these into a series of questions. But just very, very quickly, what we're looking at is that these are employers who are telling us what's important, that what are the things that you should possess to be a competitive candidate. And so competencies are really the full package. Skills are individual things that you may possess that fill out a competencies area. But things like critical thinking, professionalism, communication skills. On the skill side, ability to work in a team, leadership ability, communication, leadership again, initiative, tech skills. So all the things that you've been advised to do since you were in high school in terms of extracurricular activities and leadership positions, no matter where they come from, are very, very important. And then timing. That if you are seeking employment in any upcoming term, so if you're graduating in May 17, you should already be firmly into your job search process. For those entering finance careers, you really should start a full year ahead, all right? And so I'm sure we'll get some collaboration there, all right? Now, we're going to move on to our industry panel, so I'm very pleased to introduce, and I guess we'll start with who's on the end? Stephen, good. Stephen Corral, Vice President, Senior Technology Group Manager for J.P. Morgan Chase. Michael Bush, who is the Vice President for Business Operations at Tricarical Architecture and Design. Letty Fabiano, our Senior Director for Product Management for Sanofi. And Mr. Thomas Watt, who is a Senior Project Manager and Vice President for Global Wealth Management at Pershing, a BNY New York Mellon company. All right, so please give our panelists a round of applause. Okay, so here's how we're going to proceed. We have developed a series of about 10 or so, maybe 8 questions that I've asked the panelists to respond to. But we'll go through at least 2 or 3 of them. And then if we have questions from the audience, you can please simply raise your hand, and we'll have you ask a different question of the panelists themselves. So without further ado, let's start with the first question. And so I'm going to ask any one of the panelist members who'd like to respond of the things that I've just presented. Is there any one point that resonates in terms of advice that you would give to our students? Who'd like to go first?
I'll take that.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity for being here. Thanks for the invite, Shanti and Elaine here. It's truly an honor, and good luck for you for the rest of the program. And hopefully someday you'll be here in front of the future class giving some career advice as well. So I would say the one key point here is really getting as much experience as possible. Try to get internships. Definitely seek the career services department here at NJIT and really get your feet wet. So I would say that's the one key takeaway, the experience.
Letty, any additional advice?
Yeah. Turn this on. So to add to that, first I'd like to say thank you for having this opportunity as well to be here with all of you. But I think that in speaking to a lot of students, a lot of times people wait for that right opportunity to jump in or wait to have that perfect job that they have in mind. And I think what Thomas mentioned about getting experience is critical, because everybody has a starting point, and you can build and you can take what you learn from different experiences and add to them. But if you sit around and you wait for that perfect job, it may not come around often. And I have a lot of conversations, and in some cases I'm actually talking to some NJIT students who have graduated maybe 2 or 3 years ago that are looking for that perfect opportunity or that perfect job. And my advice to them is that perfect job, the way you've envisioned, may not be readily available, but if you start adding to your list of experiences and to what your knowledge base is, the easier it will be for you to work your way into that job.
Michael, Stephen?
Hi, everyone. Just to add to what Letty and Tom were already saying, basically when you come in, what the employer looks for is for someone who would be able to do the task without too much supervision. Now, I know you think I'm just coming in, I definitely need some help. That's all understood, but when you're coming in there, when they look at you, they want to be able to kind of give you something, and then you run with it. So Greg mentioned some of the skills, right? Some of the skills that are very important. You got to show the leadership. You got to show the leadership skills, and also kind of the knowledge of a subject that you've learned in school. So it's very critical. Just think of it like that. When you are in front of the employer, they look for that. They look for you to kind of to show that you can get the job done. So have that in mind while you have the interview, and it's going to help tremendously.
Hi, everyone. So thank you all for having me here tonight. And to build on really what Tom was saying before, I think it's really important to meet people. I got my first job at a party. So I was at a party one night. I started talking to somebody. He said, "Oh, you should talk to my buddy. You know, they're in an architecture firm." So I started talking to him. He says, "Hey, could you start tomorrow?" So I said, "Okay, I guess I'll start tomorrow." So I showed up at 8 o'clock, and I've been there 16 years now, total. So I never would have thought, what I do is primarily retail architecture, which is like malls and shopping centers. I didn't even think that that was a field that night. And then the next morning I found out, and that's kind of been the path that I've been on for the past 16 years. So my second job I worked at Coach, which is a leather company. And I got that job because they were one of our clients. And I was talking to them, and, we got along really well. And they said, hey, why don't you come to work for us? So, I haven't really interviewed in my entire life. It's always just kind of been people that I've been around. So I guess my point is to keep your eyes open, meet as many people as you can, talk to different people, even if you don't share interest, find interest that you share somehow, and try to build on that. So I think that's what I would add. So.
See, it's just that easy. Thank you. All
We're
right.
lucky. One or the other.
I presented a picture of a job market which is fruitful, it's robust, it's plentiful for majors that are graduating from the programs that are here today. But are you seeing that in your own industries? And not necessarily your companies, but within your industry, the professional associations that you belong to, the circles that you travel in. Can you share with us what you're seeing? Does it compare to the national data, or is it something different?
I'll take that.
Sure.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is within my own company, BNY Mellon, NA, is that business systems are so critical, right? So they're really looking for people who have the tech as well as the business sense of how to implement new projects. So it's really that mixture there, and then understanding what that project is and really running it, showing that leadership skills, understanding really the system inside and out from the business side as well as tech, and lead a team to make it happen.
Sure. Wonderful. Yeah. Anyone else?
Well, I could speak to that a little. I work for a more local organization. We're located in Wayne, New Jersey, and all of our operations happen in New Jersey. So I can't really speak nationally, but I could say that regionally it is very competitive, people looking for jobs. I do 10 interviews a week for people looking for jobs, and a lot of those people we talk to, they have 3 other interviews before we even talk about making an offer. So it is very competitive locally in New Jersey. So, a lot of the things we're going to talk about tonight are important for all of you, because you have to think about what's going to make you different than the person sitting next to you that would make that employer want to hire you. So.
Great. Letty, what are we seeing in Big Pharma?
So overall, I think that you definitely see that the job market has gotten better in the last few years. I want to say maybe about 5 years ago, I had about 5 or 6 engineers working actually on production lines because they couldn't find jobs. I mean, luckily, and it goes back to a little bit about what I said, maybe not finding the ideal job, they went out into industry and they got really jobs that would be atypical for professionals. But what they did develop, they developed network. As Michael said, networking is critical because they met other people that actually would put them in touch with people in other pharmaceutical organizations, and they leveraged everything that they learned. They learned jargon, all these things that you add to a resume or that you are able to bring into an interview which help you out. But if I were to look at overall, the job market is a lot better than it was a few years back, for sure.
One thing that we're seeing is that technology skills are in demand. So this is a technology university, whether you're getting a computer science degree, which was pretty high on one of those lists, which is not least important, or management, you gotta have the technology skill. There's plenty of opportunities to take computer science classes, engineering, and so on. So even when you come in, people would look for you to possess some of those skills. And I'm not talking about able to use Microsoft Word or something like that. We're talking about a little bit at a higher level, right? So even as a business analyst, for example, you're able to go in, let's say, in a database, write a query, get information, do the analysis, and provide information on the spot. So I would say that's very important, and that's really, I think, one of the keys for skilled workers in today's market, from my perspective.
Sure. We've actually done a very nice segue into our next question. Stephen, so I'll ask others to react as well, but perhaps with a little bit more specificity. All right, and so if there are technology skills above the general Microsoft Office suite of software, that students should possess to make themselves the most competitive? And it doesn't have to be a brand name product, but are there certain specific types of analytical software or charting or projection or analytics that make sense for graduates to get some experience here before they enter the world of work?
So I always find that having young, I guess, different candidates come in for jobs and being able to have a conversation where they even understand statistics and they're able to talk outside of maybe some of the usual coursework material, just based on maybe some experience or maybe some level of research that they've done, that it helps because, as Stephen mentioned, being able to give somebody an assignment and having them use whatever tools they have to put together some level of concrete analysis is critical, because you can come in and be able to work through a tool, but not being able to analyze something and give back feedback of whatever it is that you've learned, whatever learnings you have, it doesn't really provide much for an individual. I always look to have somebody come into my office and sit down and have an intelligent conversation. Hey, I looked this up for you. I did this research and, I ran the numbers and this is what I think. Good, bad, or indifferent, when they come in with some level of plan or some level of analysis, it's just a different conversation than somebody saying, here are the numbers, you decipher them.
I would say any kind of data mining software that you can, because companies are gathering data. They're mining all this data across the entire organization. And so they're running these analytical tools to just spit out answers, for what the CIO or the CEO is looking for that point in time. So everything's coming down to just dashboards of information, consolidating the entire organization into these dashboards. So anything analytical, data mining oriented, big data.
Sure. I would couple with it, anyone entering the field these days. If you don't have that skill and practice down to a science, you're simply not competitive. I see a hand here, but I was going to also segue anyway. So at this time, any questions to what we discussed thus far, or anything? Any question that you have for the group?
What is...
Yeah, I would say just highlight your leadership skills, where a past experience or maybe a school project where you were able to grab a team together and how you push through and solve the critical problems.
Well, I could definitively say passion. Because if I interview 10 people a day, I've had people come in for interviews and I say, okay, tell me about my company. And they say, oh yeah, well I looked at your website when I was driving over in my car and and immediately I'm turned off and I have no interest in that person at all. When I have somebody come in and they tell me, this is what you do, this is what you're about, this is what you stand for, that shows me that they have passion of being part of that team. So I want somebody who wants to be part of my team. I don't want somebody who just wants a job. That doesn't do anything for us at all.
So going further in, doing more research, coming in prepared, knowing just as much about the company as you do, well, to an extent. More, yeah.
You will learn a little bit about the company just based on the questions. So have the mindset of being innovative and possibly offering some solutions right on the spot. So your solutions may not be 100% accurate, but at least it will show that you're actually thinking about the problems and able to come up with something in a very short period of time. Just to give one example, let's say the conversation goes about predictive analytics, right? So at that point, you know a little bit about the company, and you can give some examples, some specific examples. Like when Netflix, right, used the predictive analytics software to come up with the popular shows and stuff like that. You know, they actually started this entire market based off of that. So you could kind of come up with some specific examples and show innovation as you talk to the employer. I think that would be also powerful.
Yeah, and I think to build on what Stephen was saying too is it's showing them how you could help them solve problems.
To show that you're an asset to the company. I like to be like, to give a reason why to hire you, basically.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about marketing, if I'm trying to sell my company, it's trying to sell to them how I'm going to solve problems for them. So I think, to build on what Stephen was saying, is when you go for an interview, you want to show them how you're going to help them solve problems, not just how you're going to run a program or a database or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Thank you.
And that precisely is a perfect definition of the difference between a competency and a skill. Right? A competency focuses on the end result. Moreover, when we survey all the employers that come to campus for on-campus interview program, the number one criticism they've had for the last 10 years, each and every semester, it's not by a far margin, but it's still the number one criticism. Students do not take the time to research the organizations before they meet with employers for their interview. How much time does it take? Right? Next. All right. Oh, we hit on that a little bit. We talked a bit about, anyone else like to add to this one? The importance of students attaining job-related work experience before graduation for various reasons. I mean, there are any number of reasons why. Let's see if we can fill in the blanks.
In this, in the first segment, basically, when you come in, the employer looks at you. They want somebody who won't require too much hand-holding. They want somebody whom you can give a task and they will just get it done. Yeah, there will be some learning, some part of learning and all of that, and part of it will actually be done by the candidate themselves. So they want somebody to be able to get this done. And if you have previous work experience, I mean, that goes a long way to show that you don't have to teach that person that much initially before they can get something done. So the return on investment is higher. So it gives you a tremendous edge if you already acquired some actual real-life skills in actual employment prior to the interview.
Great.
So how many students here know how to use AutoCAD? Have you ever heard of AutoCAD before or used it before? Okay. So when I do interviews, especially with entry-level candidates, I look 90% for how they're going to fit with our company and 10% for technical skills. Because I tell them, I say, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I promise you by Saturday morning, I could have my 10-year-old daughter drafting an AutoCAD. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Because it's the same commands that I used to do back in 1982 with how AutoCAD works. So when I look for candidates, I look 10% for their tech, and I'm just speaking specifically. Maybe you could build on your industries as well, but I look for how they're going to fit with our company. And more importantly, how teachable they are and how moldable they're going to be to get how we'd like them to fit into the company. So what do you think about that?
So I agree. I think culture is an important part of the interview process, also your work experience, because you can have somebody who's extremely tech savvy, but their ability to maybe work as part of a team or to lead a team in certain cases is questionable based on their ability to apply soft skills to their job. You could be very tech savvy and have very limited soft skills, which could be very limiting and a huge constraint. I work with a lot of, engineers and very highly technical people, and sometimes one of the things that I find most interesting is that I have to spend a lot of time coaching about soft skills, about interpersonal relationships, and the value that that brings. So sometimes being in the workforce almost gives you a little bit of an edge if you've been able to create those levels of skills and bring that into the work relationship.
Okay. Thank you. This is one that I'm very, very passionate about. I know most of the folks in the audience probably never heard of this old adage, but the early bird gets the worm. It's for old fogies like me. But how does this adage apply for a panel? How does it apply to students that are conducting their job search, knowing that there are certain industries that follow certain schedules, They conduct their recruiting almost as much a year in advance. And if students aren't aware of the schedules and the timing, it puts them at an extreme disadvantage. So from your perspective, within your industries, the things that you know and read about or experience, how true is this, and where should a student begin? At what point in their academic career should students begin thinking about and actually launching their own job search?
Yeah, so starting a job search it's critical, especially getting that experience, right? So I'd say junior year, start networking, get on LinkedIn, start, getting your name out there, start making contacts, and putting down your skills there, and like I've said before, just try to get an internship and get your foot in the door. You got to start somewhere.
Right.
The development of that network is the most important piece. As Thomas mentioned, if you develop that network, and whether it's your freshman year or it's your sophomore year, the ability to then expand that and be able to get a job is definitely a lot easier if you have something to work from. A lot of times I talk to students and they're in their senior year, and they're not quite sure if they're going to, take one aspect of their career or another. And it may have been, as Michael mentioned, maybe it happens at a party, but to be at the 11th hour at the end of your college, career, so to speak, and then start to wonder what you're going to do with your degree is a little late sometimes. So the earlier you can start thinking about where you're going and what you're going to do, the better it is.
That must have been one heck of a party, huh, Michael?
Legendary, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say this, when you go in, employers do look at number of years of experience. So the earlier you start, let's say you start at your sophomore year, by the time you graduate, even though it may be part-time work or something, it could be still 3 years of experience already. So 2 years into the workforce, you have 5 years of experience. That's a lot, that's very important. That's a lot better than, let's say, having only 2 years of experience right at that time, if as compared to if you started working right after graduation. So the sooner the better. What is it, the early worm gets, what?
No, something like that.
Yeah, but the sooner the better.
Just a
Early
final
bird gets
thought
the
on
worm.
that is, another piece of advice I would say is, and I know this sounds very cliche, but never burn a bridge. We've talked a lot here about kind of getting in and starting, and I know that's not directly answering this question, but, never burn a bridge. Because you never know where you're going to run into somebody again. You never know where you're going to, this person's in a new network or a new company, or so, our company has grown from our connections and people moving around, and so it's important to keep those connections as you get them, and again, just try to culture them as you go along.
Sure. I want to go off script for just a moment, and by a show of hands, how many of you in the room have a active LinkedIn account at this very moment? That's great. If I asked that question 2 years ago, it'd be like 10%. Well, can any of you share? I'd be very interested to hear. I'm sure our panelists would love to hear. If you can define active, tell us how you're using it, tell us how you're building your network. Who considers themselves at this young age a master LinkedIn navigator? Oh, I see a half a hand. I see a half a commitment. Young man in the nice suit. Please stand.
With my LinkedIn, it's basically all my past connections I've had with my internships, and basically the more people you meet, the more effective it is. And I don't know, my profile says I'm an all-star, so I guess that's good.
Okay. How many connections on your LinkedIn account?
I think I'm close to 100.
Okay. So
Nice.
it's a good start. It's a good place to start. I mean, the master folks have, thousands and thousands. And by the way, simply creating an account and putting your more or less resume content on the account isn't really considered an active LinkedIn networker. And the advantage that comes from being an active LinkedIn networker is working the people that are your contacts, right? Following them, responding to them, posing questions to them, posting information that you think they'd be interested in seeing. All right, and so if I shared with you that and the data sort of supports this, not just from one source, but from multiple, the number one method for college graduates and for professionals getting jobs these days is LinkedIn. Number one. All right, and so I would encourage you, and I would look for some support. I would encourage you just to get active on that account, build your contacts everywhere you go, parties, professional associations, conferences, classmates, professors. Reach out to them to establish a connection with them.
And I think it's important for LinkedIn that you remember it's not Facebook.
Right.
It is not Facebook, so you shouldn't put pictures from the beach on your cover, and it should be professional. You want to be looked at as a professional. You want to be treated as a professional. So I think it should be handled that way.
Absolutely. Speaking of the other social network, Facebook, you probably read the articles about what not to put on there. You don't want to be doing a headstand on top of a keg at a party as your profile picture, certainly. But do you look at Facebook? Do you guys, when you're considering candidates, sort of troll a little bit into Facebook space to see what the candidates are up to?
I personally don't, but I've heard a lot of horror stories from HR professionals who do look at Facebook or who actually do a Google search, and they say that some of the pictures that they see or some of the things that are out there are a little concerning. So, like I said, personally no, but I've heard some interesting stories from HR folks.
No, it's funny. The research says about 40%, but everyone says no. So we're somewhere along the line. I'm not voting for Trump, but he's the president, right? Same thing. Anyone else? Good. Okay. Relocation. Particularly important as we become a global economy. I know things can be done, at home and in your office or remotely across the world. But in today's age, and how important is being open to relocation, not only for your first job, but once you begin your career, because a lot of the programs today, you're in one place for 1 year, you're asked to go to Chicago, you're asked to go to Dubai, you're asked to go to somewhere else. I mean, is disinterest or denial of a relocation assignment a career killer?
So I'll actually take this if I may. Interestingly enough, there are organizations where mobility is part of the development software, or what you do to actually, part of what you do is you create a profile. And one of the questions asked is if you're mobile, and if you're not mobile, one of the things that could happen is that you go from being a high potential individual to now a mid-level potential, because your potential with that company has now diminished by your ability to go and work in different areas.
Excellent.
I would say in financial services, working with people in London and India, everything is really through the computer, video conferencing, chats. So, I've worked with people for a decade, and I haven't even met them in person. Sure. So, it's really all remote based. So, financial services, technology oriented, I would say it's not that big.
Mm-hmm. So it depends on I know in engineering services and different things, colleagues of mine and folks that I spoke to, that they travel, 40 weeks out of the year, all right? And that's from a home base. And so I think it depends on the industry specifically, but generally, if you're not interested, and by a show of hands again, how many of you, if offered a position initially, would be interested in relocating for the assignment? That's good. I think much more so than prior. Okay.
Yeah, and further to this point, it's national, but it's also international. So sometimes there may be a great opportunity that comes in, let's say somewhere in UK, right, London or even Scotland. So if their flexibility is there could be a great opportunity. And also I hear Scotch is not so bad in Scotland as well.
Yeah, call Scott there. All right, and lastly, we'll go right down the line, if you would, starting with Thomas, please. Your best advice. If you had one piece of advice, sage advice, to bestow upon our audience, what would it be in terms of their job search?
It's definitely the networking. I would say networking. Just try to get that experience as much as possible. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn.
There you go.
And
101.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is important, as Michael mentioned before, is the professionalism. I think professionalism in everything that you do, professionalism in the way you handle social media, professionalism in the way that you dress and that you show up for an interview, being engaged when you show up for an interview. Always put your best image forward, because as Michael mentioned, it could be anywhere that you're going to find that potential job opportunity. And you may have one of those moments where you think that somebody's not watching. People are watching quite often, and what you show to the world can help you in the future. But again, I can't emphasize this enough. And I was mentioning to Thomas before that I had one candidate who came in for an interview, and it was a young engineer. And I asked the question, so what can you tell me about your internship position, the people that you were working with? And the person became so comfortable, said, oh, I can tell you, they were really chill at that company. I got to tell you, it killed his interview. He was done. Because although it was casual, how could I ever send that individual somewhere to represent the site if at any given point in time that person is going to become so comfortable that his whole, and it's not that I don't understand that. I'll tell you, I have teenagers. I understand the whole concept of chill. Not in an interview, though, you know, because that is not the person that you send somewhere.
Thanks.
I think I would just reiterate what I said before. And it's doing your homework. It's really knowing, specifically speaking about a first interview, getting your feet wet with this. It's really knowing what you're getting into. Don't be the person that I ask, tell me about my company, and they don't know the answer. Because like I said before, instantly, I'm not interested in that candidate. So take that for what it's worth.
And Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, everything we discussed today, it's important. But the biggest thing is you have to show it within a very short period of time. All right, so the biggest assets to me are knowledge and innovation. The idea is, when you go for the interview, it's like, how do you want to make that person feel? What do you want them to think about you? And you want them to think that you're knowledgeable and you're very innovative. All right, so when you talk to them, try to come up with the innovative solutions. I was saying this before, and I'm repeating myself, the risk of repeating myself, but that's pretty much the reality.
Great.
You go in and you want to make people think that you can get the job done with minimal supervision. If you can make the employer think that, there's a high likelihood of successful interview.
Thank you so much. So on behalf of our esteemed group of alum panels who came back, thank you for listening to our sage advice. Thank you.
Okay, I will also come to take this opportunity to thank Greg and the panel. I believe Elaine wants to come and give you a special thank. Okay, but before Elaine starts, there is one more thing what I like to say, which is to recognize the unique characteristic of the student of the New Jersey Institute of Technology. This institute has a big center by the new parking deck called the Economic Development Center, where you have a lot of new companies which are taking birth, the nascent companies. The truth is, a paradigm has shifted tremendously during these past few years. You are living in interesting times, very different from any other times. Yes, getting a job is good, getting a job is proper, but then I also want to encourage you to be dreamers, to be people who will start companies of your own. And it is indeed possible. It's not far-fetched. It's really, really is not far-fetched. The panels spoke many times about passion. So if you are passionate about anything and you have a group of your colleagues who wish to work on this, just check a little bit how Bill Gates started. And you will see what I'm not completely off the mark. You have now the opportunity with this Economic Development Center and several of our faculty. For instance, Professor Ehrlich here, Professor Cesar Bandera, and Professor Ellen Thomas, they will give you some few ideas about how you can start pretty much your own ideas and work with them. It's not far-fetched. So I will encourage you to keep in mind what you are living in interesting times. And there are many things what you can do. I mean, I was just looking at my grandson, who is just 2 years old, and looking at him with his mother's cell phone, he figured out how to make a video of himself. Believe it or not, he did. So he can roll around and mock at the videos and do all kind of grimaces. 2 years old. I almost fell off when I saw him doing it. And when he finished, he will stop and he will watch his own video. Okay, so you live in a very interesting times, and many of you are extremely smart. And NJIT has this unique resource, what you can take advantage. You can come and work with one of the nation companies, probably next to very, very small amount of money, with concepts and ideas what you are learning from class. There is a chance that you can go a long, long way with that. So just keep that also in mind. Elen, please come. Thank you again, the panel. Thank you very much all. Thank you, students, for coming. And most definitely, thank you, grade.
Hello, everybody. My name is Elaine Frazier, and I would be absolutely remiss if I did not first of all express my gratitude to these 4 EMBA alums and my pride in their success and their professionalism and how impeccably they represent the Martin Tuchman School of Management and NJIT. These are people that I recruited, so I'm exceptionally proud because I recruited them. And aren't they just spectacular? Thank you. Thanks a lot. And thank you again. Well, this is a tall step here.
We have a fairly busy program this evening. Our Board of Advisors will be here very shortly, and we're going to have a meet and greet the board, which will probably be in the next 5 to 10 minutes. They're just finishing up their board meeting, and we have our Bloomberg lab that was open today. After that, we're going to have the Strategic Management Showcase presentations, which was a simulation competition that went on all today, and that will start at 6:30. So at about 5:45, you'll meet and greet the board. Hopefully the panel will have some time to interact with you. And thereafter, we'll have dinner at 6 o'clock, and then 6:30 would be the Strategic Management Showcase presentation. So I'd urge all of you to stay and meet with the panelists, meet with the advisory board, and also listen to the Strategic Management Showcase presentation. So thank you.